Described under Title 11, Chapter 163 of the Florida Statutes, and we function under the authority of Articles 11 and 12 of the Putnam County Land Development Code. Primary responsibility of the Commission is to serve as an advisory board or advisory body to hear and make recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners on matters related to provisions of and proposed amendments to the Putnam County Comprehensive Plan and Putnam County Land Development Code. Members of this committee will review each application and make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners at a regularly scheduled meeting on October 25th, 2022. Procedurally, we will call each case by name and number. A member of staff will then briefly explain to us the nature of each request. We will take comments from the applicant or the representative, followed by any public comments concerning the request. Please direct all comments or statements to the Commission and not to other people in the audience. Before speaking, we will ask each person to be recognized, come forward to the lectern, and identify his or herself by name and address. After all persons wishing to speak have been heard, we will entertain a motion from the Commission. This motion will be voted on by the Commission members and become our recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. The Board of County Commissioners will make the final determination regarding the application.
Before we get started with the first case, I was going to ask our members, has anyone had any ex parte communication involving either one of these cases? Okay. I have, unbeknownst to me at the beginning, but I met Mr. Parker last week, I think, and in conversation he was telling me about the problem that he was having in getting a building permit on his property, and that's for the second case. We had a brief discussion, and it's not going to affect my ruling or my judgment on this matter.
That's fine.
Anyone else? Okay. We will call case R22005.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, Joe Searley with Planning and Development Services. This is a rezoning from the applicant White, Costello, and Riley. The application is amend the zoning map from residential 2 and commercial neighborhood C1 to commercial general, which is C3. Location is located along South Highway 17, adjacent to the intersection of Troop Road and South Highway 17. The future land use of this area is urban service, and the proposal consists of 3 parcels equaling approximately 2.9 acres, and the applicant has requested to rezone these parcels to allow for several uses. They haven't really narrowed it down yet, but those uses they provided to within the application is mini warehouse, RV and boat sales, portable building display and sales, general retail sales, and retail sale of food. As mentioned, there are 3 parcels equaling 2.9 acres. The first parcel is a combination of residential 2 and commercial neighborhood C1. The C1 portion of this first parcel is, I think, approximately 0.3 acres, and it's zone C1 as mentioned. The second parcel is residential 2 and is 1.10 acres. The third parcel is residential 2 as well, which is 1.12 acres. And that portion of the first parcel within C1 has a current structure on it that once operated as a tire store. The applicant is requesting to rezone all 3 of these parcels to commercial 3. Here is an aerial of the subject property there in blue. It's predominantly surrounded by some agricultural and vacant residential, as well as large rural residential lots to the north. The applicant also owns the Lynch Landing PUD RV resort along the water there, along Troop Road. You see the Lynch Landing RV resort is right there in the purple, in the northwestern corner of this picture. Here's a future land use map, and the majority of all land uses along this corridor are urban service, with some commercial land use to the north, further along South Highway 17 and to the south. I zoomed out on the zoning map so you could see the sporadic commercial development existing currently south south of the subject parcel and to the north. So with the exception of the 0.3 acre portion of the parcel 1, which is, allows for commercial uses, the other designations do not allow for commercial uses as requested in the application. Per section 45-83, the C3 zoning designation would allow for those requested uses that they've proposed. The parcel has an underlying land use urban service, which allows for both neighborhood and community commercial development along the South Highway 17 corridor. Urban service is slated for commercial development along this corridor with the future expansion of infrastructure. I believe there is some existing central water along this corridor, or this portion of the corridor. It's located in a portion that has existing sporadic commercial developmental lands within urban service and commercial land use, as I shown on the zoning map. And the urban service land use classification also encourages a mixture of uses as infrastructure becomes available within the next 15 years. Currently, the subject property abuts both Troop Road on one of the parcels and South Highway 17, and is located adjacent both to residential and vacant agriculture. As mentioned, there's commercial development along this corridor within less than a half mile from the subject parcel to the north and south along Highway 17, and is anticipated to provide a mixture of uses along this corridor within the future. Any potential impacts on neighboring residential parcels, the applicant would be required to provide a 10-foot wide Class A vegetated buffer between the surrounding residential area. Perimeter buffering would also be required along the vehicle use areas for parking. And depending on the type of use the applicant proposes to develop on site, additional buffering may be required. The Class A buffer consists of 6-foot evergreen plants at 75% opacity, a 6-foot masonry block wall, or a 6-foot solid wood fence, or a 6-foot berm not steeper than 2-to-1 ratio, and a combination with one of the above to reach that 75% opacity to mitigate any type of visual impacts on surrounding parcels. Staff recommends approval of the request to amend the zoning designation from R2 and commercial neighborhood to commercial general or C3. The applicants are here to answer any questions as well as staff. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff?
I have one. Do you know what they're going to be using this for? Is it an RV sales, or what is the purpose?
At the time I spoke with the applicants, at the time the application was made, there were several options they were pursuing. They just wanted to get the zoning in place and then touch base with staff and see what the highest and best use would be for them. But
Okay, so they really don't have a particular use that they're
nothing. They didn't provide a conceptual plan or anything of that nature yet.
Okay. On the DV road, you said it does not face on the DV road going into the development there? Am I saying the word right?
Divvy.
Divvy?
Yeah.
Subdivision.
Sorry.
That's good.
I believe it's, yeah, I don't think it faces on DD Road. I want to say that. If I'm wrong, and maybe it does, I can't see based on this aerial, mine's really small.
It does appear to on the maps that you provided us.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, it does.
I see it.
One of the parcels does have frontage along Divvy Road.
Would that frontage be screened from that road? Would that be considered a barrier
Yes, sir. So
or a buffer area?
there would be a required buffer area for any kind of like outside storage, including storage for an RV or boats or whatever else they may want to store there. And the comprehensive plan actually requires the preservation of existing native vegetation, which would provide an even more opaque screening along Divvy Road.
Okay. Anybody else have questions for staff? I do just want to make a comment for the record. When I was looking at this kind of late this morning, I noticed that there are deed restrictions that are attached to the northerly two properties on this that are residential. I know we don't get into deed restrictions, but I just want that to be part of the record.
What does that affect, if you don't mind me asking, because I don't know?
Well, it says they're to be used for residential purposes.
Said what now?
It says they're to be used for residential purposes in what I read. But again, we don't enforce that. That would be the HOA or whatever is there in divvy. Yeah. So that's all I have. Any other questions? Would the applicant like to speak? Yes, ma'am. Come up to the podium and state your name and address.
I'm Bridget Costello, 129 Troop Road, San Mateo, part of Lynch's Landing and one of the owners of this property. And we're not thinking so much per se any RV sales or anything like that at this time, but more like perhaps an I don't really know until we see what we can do as far as zoning, but perhaps some kind of upscale bait shop, tackle shop, something like that, that would be more fitting and sort of work with the park that we have as far as boat use and that. You know, I put down several options, but at this point, you know, it's mostly just me and my sister and my sister-in-law, so I'm not going to get into a lot of things that I can't personally handle. So it would be something on a smaller scale at this time.
Okay. I just have, I haven't run one of these meetings since college, so I don't remember the rules of order very good.
I'm sorry, I don't either. I've never attended one, so forgive me if I'm doing something wrong.
No, you're good. Were you aware of the deed restrictions on those two lots?
No,
Okay.
I don't recall any deed restrictions on our paperwork.
Okay.
And which lots are we saying there's deed restrictions on?
I saw it on the application that you turned in on, there was a title commitment attached to it, and it just stated it on one of those pages.
And
so.
which address would that be for?
It's the two lots, not the one that had the building on it, the two vacant lots.
Not 661,
Yeah.
or the other was 657?
I don't know the addresses. It was the one that was, the two that were vacant, as far as,
The only one that has, and there's a Quonset hut
Yes.
behind the building. The other lots are vacant, so there's deed restrictions.
it's not the corner on Troop Road, it's the other two, the middle and the one by Divvy Road.
The one
From
that
what
goes-
what I gathered in my little research.
No, I don't, we weren't told there were any deed restrictions by the gullet title that we used, and I didn't read anywhere in the paperwork that there were.
Okay.
So I was not aware of that.
They should be
Okay.
listed in the deed, should they not?
They were on the title commitment page that somebody provided with the application. I saw that. And I know it's probably easy to miss that, too. Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you. Is there anyone here that's filled out a card to speak for or against? I think, okay.
Madam Chair, he can just come forward and speak if you want.
Okay. If you'll come forward to the podium and state your name and address, then we can get that from you afterwards.
My name's James White. I live at 111 Troop Road, and we're here to ask that it not be approved to zone for C3. There have been several businesses that have tried to set up in that corner building on that block. None of them have succeeded. The last one, the tire, I wouldn't even call it a repair place. When they had rented or leased that building to them, they had trash all over the place. It would always blow into our yard. We were constantly having to pick up trash that would blow from there. And we feel that with the way it's set up their only entrance would either be Troop Road or on 17. There's no mention of having access to those properties from Divvy, just Troop and 17. If they come through on Troop, that's going to increase the traffic flow. We feel that it's just going to decrease our property value by you allowing them to do that. I do have the copies of the warranty deeds that show that it is a deed-restricted area for residential use. I have 6 extra copies here, which I'd be glad to give any of you so that you could see that it states on here that one of the deed restrictions or the miscellaneous items says these covenants and restrictions shall run with the land and be binding upon all subsequent owners thereof. So one was dated 1987, the other was dated 1984. So you have to go back in looking at the deed restrictions or the warranty deeds in order to find the actual deed restrictions. We're not part of an HOA, okay? Those parcels aren't part of an HOA. They're just deed restricted. And we just ask that you keep it that way.
Thank you.
Okay.
If you want to provide copies to Jenny, I think
Okay.
that would be appropriate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak for or against this proposal? Hearing none, we'll have a discussion among the board or a motion.
I would like to add
Ma-
to our attorney.
Madam Chair, if I may just make a statement on the issue of the deed restrictions. I was not aware of deed restrictions on this property, but we normally, if we have the knowledge of a deed restriction that will interfere with an action of a board or an action by our department, we normally will either recommend denial or not approve the permit. An example would be if there's a deed restriction that doesn't allow any further splitting of the property, we will not approve a lot split unless we see that the deed restriction has been amended. Normally, the government does not involve itself in the enforcement of deed restrictions, but when we do see deed restrictions that will conflict with an action on the part of the government, we try to be proactive. I can't say now, without researching it further, I can't say what our opinion on this would be at this point. The recommendation, it would have to remain as it is now because it's what's been presented to the Planning Commission. But had we had the knowledge previously of these deed restrictions, the recommendation may have been different. So that's a statement I wanted to make on that point.
Any motion or discussion?
Yes.
You could make a motion to postpone it, I believe. Let's confirm.
Yes, you can, if that's what you'd like to do.
And Commission, if I may add something, reading through this deed restriction, I do not see where it prohibits residential development. I see where there are supplemental provisions for residential development, but unless you're seeing something and I'm not, I don't see where it prohibits a rezoning or commercial development or restricts it only to residential development.
I don't know that we would be the ones to determine that. Well, if you look at number 1 where it says
That's what I'm
all
looking
lots
at.
shall be used for residential purposes, single-family residence.
Madam Chairperson,
Yes.
why don't we set this aside and give the staff time to investigate what these deed restrictions are and how it would affect their recommendation and bring it back next month? We don't have a motion on the floor, so unless you want me to make a
Is
motion.
that your is that your motion?
Yeah, if you motion to table it till we get further information from our staff.
Any discussion on the motion?
He seconded down here.
Yeah, it was
Yeah, we can
seconded by
still,
Jo-
we can still
Joel.
have another discussion. I was just wondering what our attorney had to say, because I'm confused now. I don't know what to do, because if you change the zoning on, that was deed restricting to something else, does that deed restriction go away?
Well, Mr. Joey, I think that the chair can table this simply for the reasons that staff has brought up, that there could be something here that if the board passes it, it would be basically not really as what you're intending to do. So if you care to table it, you can, and it'll come back at a further time with with an analysis by staff. It could be the same analysis, but at least ways the board will be clear in its own mind of what you're doing, why, and why.
Okay?
Now, I have a question for you. Do I have to, because again, I haven't run a meeting like this in a long time, like 30 years, so. Do I have to have a motion to table it, or I just say we table it?
Well, you can go ahead and have a motion. You have a motion on the floor right now. I'd
Have a
go ahead
motion
and
to
follow
table it?
through with it, yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
I made the motion to table till we get
And we
further
have a
information
second. All in
from
favor?
the staff. Yes.
Aye. Chair votes aye.
Okay.
And if you will state the date, I know the motion's passed already, but normally you would state the date certain of when this would be considered again by the Planning Commission.
Within the next 60 days, if you'll add that to the motion, that'd be fine.
I would say that,
I don't know that we can add that to a motion that's passed already, so
Make another motion.
if the original person who made the motion would clarify the intent of what the motion was, to what date.
Okay, I made the original motion. I'd like to table to a point where we can get more input from our staff to investigate the possibilities of some deed restrictions and report back to us within the next 2 meetings, 60 days if that's possible.
Within the next 2 weeks or
2 meetings,
Oh, 2 meetings.
2 months.
Okay. So then we would table it to November.
Fine.
That's correct. We would have to have a date certain on the, so that we could advertise it properly. So if you, I'm fairly certain that staff can probably do, if we have a copy of the deed restrictions, which I think Ms. Fortner has already obtained, we can review them, and if we need to amend our recommendation, we can do that in fairly short order in time for the next meeting, because the report's already written. Or if the applicant at that point decides to withdraw the application or amend the scope of the application, that can be done as well.
Okay.
Well, the question is, do you have anything coming up next month?
Yes, sir, we do.
Okay,
We have quite a bit.
okay.
Then let's table till next month if that's okay with everyone. That'll give the staff time to come back.
the motion carried, so, yeah.
Is that okay with the second? Yes.
Yes, it was just a clarification of the motion.
Okay.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. I guess you'll be getting with staff on that. The next case is SM 22-001.
Good afternoon. This is item 2 on the agenda. Once again, Joe Searley with Planning and Development Services. This is an application to amend the future land use map from agriculture to rural residential. The applicant's Karen Parker, and the subject property is located at 629 State Road East. The parcel is approximately 5.05 acres with a land use classification of agriculture as well. The zoning is agriculture. The proposal is to amend the land use classification to comply with density requirements of the comprehensive plan for the agricultural land use classification in order to construct a single-family dwelling. provide a little background. The subject parcel was split from a parent parcel through deed in 2006. For LDC, any subdivision of land within Putnam County is required to file application with the county. I believe the applicant was unaware of this process at the time. When the parcel was divided, it rendered the lot non-conforming to the permissible density and the comp plan for the agricultural land use. And the agricultural land use currently permits 1 dwelling unit per 10 acres. As mentioned prior, this is a 5-acre parcel. Here is an aerial of the parcel, which is predominantly surrounded by large rural lots and the Grand Eagle subdivision to the west. Glen Eagle subdivision. Here's a zoning map showing the PUD, the Glen Eagle PUD to the west. And here's a future land use map that shows abutting land use classification of rural residential to the north and to the west, which is what the applicant's proposing. As mentioned before, the current density requirements of agriculture do not allow for the development of a single-family dwelling unit on 5 acres unless it abuts a county-maintained road, which this parcel does not. Therefore, it must adhere to the 1 dwelling unit per 10 acres. Several lots were created from the parent parcel in 2006 that now have existing single-family homes. The surrounding parcels to the north and west maintain a rural residential future land use classification that allows for a density of 1 dwelling unit per 2.5 acres. The applicant's only requesting to construct a single-family dwelling on the 1 5-acre parcel. The request is compatible with surrounding land uses to the north and west and development patterns of large rural lot single-family residential in the surrounding area. Staff is recommending approval of the request to amend the map from agriculture to rural residential, and the applicant and his son are here to answer any further questions as well as staff.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
Just to clarify, this new zoning will only be allowed 1 residence, is that correct?
It's a land use classification. It's not a zoning designation, so it would allow 1 dwelling unit for 2.5 acres. So they potentially could get 2 on a 5-acre parcel. However, they only wish to construct 1 single-family home. I would like to add that, parcels to the west and to the north have smaller sized parcels, to anywhere from 2.5 to 5 acres that have developed single-family homes to the north and to the west as well.
The road that goes to it is a private road, it appears. Is that like a deeded road, or how does that?
It's a private easement. They would need to, if they were to construct on that parcel, I believe there are more than 2 homes taken access from that easement. They'd be therefore they would be required to improve that to, I believe, local roadway standards if it's more than 2 units, or Appendix 9.
Not local roadway standards, but the easement standards. So this case comes to us as a result of dividing a property that occurred many years ago that was not approved by the county, and it was in violation of the comprehensive plan and the land development code. And in order to try to facilitate development on this 1 parcel, we are recommending the approval of the rural residential land use designation. But with that comes the requirement to update or upgrade the existing easement, which was not approved by the county either, to the standards of the code. So we would have to have a stabilized surface, minimum radius, a turnaround at the end, things like that. Now, with this, this is only the first step in the facilitation of development on this parcel. So he would be allowed 1 residence, but we have to approve what's called an after-the-fact lot split for this property in order to bring that parcel into recognition by the county.
So the access to this property, it looks like it goes all the way to 20.
Yes, sir.
You can't access it off that. You couldn't have a little driveway off that, like use this private road.
Well, that was one of the options that were discussed. The problem, I think, was in the difficulty of the applicant obtaining a separate easement through one of the adjoining property owners, because it's effectively landlocked right now. I mean, it does have easement access, but it doesn't adjoin or abut any roadway, public roadway.
Madam Chairperson,
Yes.
when we did our master land use recommendations, and we revised a lot of this chopping up of large acreage tracts to have development for future residential, I know we had a condition that we put in there that anything that was involved in that, we'd have to have access to a paved road, for the reason that with private roads, we're going to have a lot of problems down the road unless they brought up to grade. And I know we spent hours covering that in our master land use plan revisions. And I'm not even remembering exactly why, I mean, how we did it, but it's there. And I don't know if anyone else recalls that conversation, but it went on
It
for
was
hours.
It was like a class, whatever, subdivisions had to have paved roads to be
Okay.
approved now. Yes.
Okay.
But he's looking to change the future land use from ag to rural residential. Any other questions for staff? Would the applicant like to speak? Come forward and state your name and address, please.
Yes, I'm Jerry Parker, in 400 East End. I'm the agent for my son, Cameron Parker. And the question y'all were just asking, we could have answered them properly for y'all already. So, I mean, if y'all want to know anything about the access and all, there is access to that property through the warranty deed. The easement, there might not be quite just enough for the turnaround he's talking about, but there is already access to that property. It is not landlocked.
I went to it, and I saw it looked like you might have already cleared the area.
Yes, we bought this property. My son bought it. We spent money clearing it, and then we found out 6 months ago, can't do nothing with it. And he's got more information. How we purchased the property.
And if y'all have questions.
Yeah.
You state your name and address.
Cameron Barker, 400 East End Road.
Any questions for the applicant?
No, the access road wasn't too bad when I drove down it. It was a
It's-
little wet at the time, but it wasn't that
No,
bad.
man,
I've seen
it's,
worse.
I mean,
Right now, they are improving it. They have been getting gravel, rock, loads brought in to fill up the road.
Yeah.
To improve it.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than most easements that I've been on,
Yes.
in
Oh,
my
yes.
opinion, with the
we're saying also,
millings.
my son wouldn't have bought it. The son of,
Mind speaking into the microphone?
if my son wouldn't have bought the property, if Kevin Scott Phillips would have kept it, he wouldn't be able to build on it, just like it was, because he was a grandson of the grandparents. But being they have passed away, we cannot get lot split signed to do that. That's why we're here today, because the grandparents
Can't
passed
get
away.
the family member exception is.
Right. So that's why we're here today, to try to move along on this piece of property, so he can build a house.
Okay. Anything else you'd like us to know? Okay, thank you, you can be seated. Is there a motion?
I move to recommend that we approve the zoning R22.
Comprehensive plan change.
This one, use that.
Yeah, okay.
That's the
Mo-
number and everything.
SM 22.00.
So we have a motion by Joel, second by Stanley. Any discussion on the motion? All right, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. All opposed?
Aye.
So we have, motion passes. Is there any old business? Any new business we need to know about?
What's that?
We're getting there.
Oh. I did want to announce that the Land Development Code rewrite will be commencing soon, I mean, at least the process. The agreement has been executed, and we have a consultant, EXP. They have many qualified individuals that will be working with county staff to spearhead this project. I'm anticipating it'll take between 1.5 to 2 years to fully complete, just because of how thorough the revisions are proposed. Mr. Hodge mentioned it earlier, this is my last meeting with you all. I've accepted another position, and this Friday's my last day with the county, so it's been a pleasure working with you all. And
Thank you for your service to Putnam County.
thank you. And that's all that I have.
Okay. Any other? We need to approve the minutes from July 13th.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes.
We have a motion on the floor to approve them. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Then we are adjourned.
Thank you.